Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Stellar, and on this channel I'll be teaching you how to script, and you don't even have to know anything about Studio yet because I'll be teaching you that today. So in order to get Roblox Studio, you want to go to this site, which will be in the description in the video, and then you just follow these steps. You want to make an account if you haven't already. You go here and you just click start creating if I'm correct, and then it will download Studio for you. And then when you have Studio, you want to make sure you're signed in your account, and then you'll see the screen. All right, so on this screen you're able to make a new game. So you have the base plate, classic base plate, flat terrain, etc., and you can choose these templates to start from. All right, so obviously these ones are the primitive ones, and these ones are for learning how to use Roblox Studio. But we'll be not learning from these, okay? I'll be teaching you from scratch, all right? So we have the base plate, the classic base plate, and flat terrain, all right? So the base plate is the most modern one, the most used. The classic base plate is the oldest one, and the flat terrain is just a base plate with terrain, all right? So obviously we're gonna go with the modern one, and we're gonna start learning from there. All right, so you just click on it and then you start loading into this template. So I have a lot of different tools enabled which you don't have, but don't worry, I'll be sure to tell you how to use them and enable them so you can use them as well. So you will see this. All right, so you're in this world with basically nothing but a skybox, base plate, and the spawn location. So then, to start learning about Roblox Studio, I want to teach you about these windows you have here. If you don't see these windows, you want to go to View, and you have the Explorer. And this is one of the most important things, as well as the properties, because with these you can alter your game and change it however you want to. So let me show you about the Explorer, all right? The Explorer is really important. It shows all the objects in your game. So this whole world we see, in Roblox Studio, we call this the workspace, okay? So here you have the workspace. When you open it here, you have these objects in them, right? You have the camera, which is your camera, obviously. You have terrain, and terrain, of course, it's used for terrain, but you cannot see anything in it, which if you want to make terrain, you go here and you use these tools to make some terrain like this. All right, now we don't want that, obviously. Or maybe you do, but not me. Then we have the spawn location, and right here, we have a decal in it. What is a decal, you may ask? Decal is just an image on a part. You can delete it, and then it won't have a decal. If you want to delete something, obviously right click on it, delete, or you press del on your keyboard. So let's keep that actually. And you have the base plate. And the base plate is a huge part, okay? You can open it and you see it has a texture on it, which is similar to the decal, but it's a little different. You can also delete that. Then it looks really smooth, which kind of looks weird to be honest, so I'm gonna add that back. You also have players, and in this object, the players will be shown. You can read their names and stuff. You have the lighting. Lighting is the atmosphere of the game and the overall lighting, of course. So you have the atmosphere. If you delete that, suddenly the fog in the distance disappears. So add that back. You have the skybox. When you delete that, the sky looks different. I don't like the sky, so I'm gonna add the skybox back. Looks really clear, really satisfying to look at. And then you have the bloom. And the bloom, well, it's not really important what this all is. So let's just close that. The most important thing you have to know is that the lighting is the ambient of the game. Material service, this is all stuff you're gonna learn later. I'm not gonna teach you all of them right now. Okay, so I wanna teach you more about the tools instead, all right? So you have, let's say the part, okay? So let's say you don't like this color, okay? You wanna have maybe grass instead, right? Really simple. So first of all, we don't wanna have it have a texture. So let's delete the texture first. Okay, so next is the properties window, right? If you don't see this, once again, you go here and you enable it, okay? So then you can see all the properties about this part, this object. So you want to make sure you have it selected. If you don't have it selected, then you won't see these properties. Then you can see we have a bunch of properties here. And a property basically is what defines an object. So if you change anything here, it will affect the object. So let's change the brick color, all right? So that's just basically the color. So let's have it have a green color. Then we have something called cast shadow, which basically enables the shadows. We want to keep that, but if you want to disable it, be my guest. Then you have the color again, which is a little more advanced. You can exactly choose what color you want to have. You know, we chose forest green. And like brick color is like more, you can select whatever. And then we have material. Okay, this is good. We can choose a bunch of materials from this list. And we want to have grass instead, all right? Then you have grass. The texture may look a little off from maybe what you have seen on actual Roblox, but yeah, just live with it. We also have different materials like bricks. It's weird for base plate. We also have wood, metal, you know, all that sort of stuff. We want to stick to grass, all right? Now that's looking a lot more like, maybe change the color. It looks a little weird. So maybe a bit of a, I don't know, I'm not really good with colors, but you know, that looks fine to me. So yeah, that's the properties tab. We have more properties, of course. I want to make sure you know about most of them. So we have material variant, which is recently added, but probably when this video is really old, people will start using this more often. But I haven't used it yet. I have no idea how to use it, so I'm not going to talk about that. You have reflectance, and reflectance is, you know, reflectance, like it reflects the base plate. It's not really ray tracing, something really advanced or RTX stuff. It's not. It's just really simple. When you make it high, you want to make sure you have a good material for it. So let's put it to ice, for example. You can see it's starting to, actually, never mind. I have no idea what reflectance really does. All I know is that in some cases it does reflect. I think it's with glass, honestly. So yeah, there we go. I was right. So yeah, as you can see, it's reflecting the skybox. Transparency, really important. It determines how see-through a part is. So when you put it to 1, you can see through it completely. Put it to half, you can barely look through it. That's important for making windows, of course. So let's put this back to grass. All right, you have these properties. Archivable, forget that. Class name is, you know, is it a part? By the way, we call these objects, these building blocks, we call them parts. Okay, that's really important to know. We have locked. What it means is whether you can select it or not in your camera. Okay, so right now when we click on the base plate, we cannot select it, but we can select this spawn location. All right, so to allow us to select it, we want to disable locked. Now we can select it, as you can see. So that's great. So let's keep it locked. We have the name. You can change this to whatever you want. Let's call it like the best of the world, and then it changes depending on that value. All right, so let's return it back because it's not the greatest. Yeah, the parent. The word parent is a little weird for it, but I guess it makes sense at the end. So what a parent is, it's the object that owns this object. Okay, so in this case, the workspace owns this object. Okay, so we can actually change that by just clicking on this, and then we want to select another object. So let's say the player must have this object. So suddenly you notice that the base plate is gone, which is because the workspace is what shows the objects, it visualizes them. And now you can see that the parent has changed the players. We want to change that back actually. You can also change the parent by selecting the object and you drag it to somewhere else. So let's say you put it to storage. Okay, now it's there. Put it back to workspace. So that's what the parent is. And you have also the size. You can change this however. All right. Put that back. The position, obviously where it's located in the world. We can move it a little up by putting it to 10, for example. Then it's moved up. Let's put our camera a little down so you can see it. So there you can see. All right, let's put it back. You have the orientation, which is the rotation. You can change this to 90 degrees, maybe 45. You can see the world has gone rotated. So you have these positions again, don't worry about them. You have can collide. So in games and Roblox, you might have noticed that you can walk through certain objects, and this is because they have this property called can collide, they have it turned off. So when we turn this off, we can actually walk through this and fall through this part. You have these can query and can touch. Don't worry about them yet. They'll be for later when you're really good at scripting. You have anchored. This is also a really important property, okay? So anchored determines whether this object will fall or not. Well, not really fall, if it interacts with physics. So if something pushes it, it'll react. But when it's anchored, it will not react to any force or any physics thing, okay? But obviously, for the base plate, we want to keep this anchor so it doesn't fall, okay? So when we turn this off, actually, and we run it, I'll talk about testing later. Don't worry about that for now. The game has to load a little bit, so there, it actually falls. It interacts with physics, and obviously we don't want to have that, so you want to make sure it is anchored. And since it's so commonly used, you can actually enable it here, anchored. So when it's darker, it is enabled, so keep that enabled. You have the shape. The shape, you can change it to a cylinder, a ball, but the ball is here. I don't know where the ball actually went. No, whatever, but let's put it back to the block. So that's a really quick rundown of all the properties of a part. You have more properties, of course, the workspace, lighting, that kind of stuff. Lighting, you have the sun rays effect, for example. So when you look at the sun, it has a sort of sun ray effect. We can make this more intensive, but obviously we don't want to have that so high. Let's put it back to whatever it was. So yeah, that's properties. It defines an object. The object changes depending on those values. So yeah, properties, whatever. We want to add parts to this game. We want to make it more beautiful instead of this ugly chunk of grass. We can add parts by just clicking this part button here. Click on it, boom, you have a part. And it looks like a Lego brick, and that's really what it is. It's a building block of Roblox. A lot of games you've played are built on these blocks, right? And like, you can change the size. You have these tools here. You have the select tool, move tool, scale tool, and rotate tool. So the select tool, obviously you can select them, you can drag them around, and you can also move them like really precise. Like, let's say you want to move it on the x-axis, the z-axis, and the y-axis. All right, you can see all the axes right here. So z is the blue one, x is the red one, and y is the green one. If you don't see that, go to view and enable view selector. All right, go back to home, and then you can move it however you like. You can also scale it. You can change the size of the part easily instead of those properties you have here. No, just like this, easy. All right, you can also rotate them, of course. Like this, speaks for itself. Okay, nice. So we can make a little tree out of this, a really simple tree. I'm not really good at making trees after all. You should make it a ball. You can make it a little more realistic. Change the color of it. Put it to this color. And more to center. And make it grass, right? Make this brown color and make it wood. There, we made a simple tree. Let's say you want to move this tree, right? So let's just drag it and it fell apart. So how can we actually prevent this from happening? We can select both of them. So when you hold Control down, you can select multiple objects, all right? You can also hold down Shift, like that. And then we can move them all at the same time. So now we can move this tree wherever we'd like. All right. But that's so tedious because we'd have to select every single part of this tree. But it's not a big deal because this one's just made out of 2 parts. But let's say it's like, I don't know, 1,000 parts. You want to be able to select it with 1 click. Easy solution for that. When you're done making your tree or object, you want to select all of it like this. And then you want to press Ctrl G, right? So now you've created something called a model. What's so great about models is you select with 1 click and you can drag it anywhere you'd like. And you can even copy them and paste them. And you can put more. But instead of copying and pasting, we can also just right click on it and press duplicate. And then you have two trees right here, right? So we want to separate them like that. And now we have 2 trees. But obviously you don't want to work with right clicks a lot. You want to be really fast building. So you want to hold Control and D. And this will make it easier to duplicate more trees. You can select multiple, of course. Press Ctrl D, you can make more. That's what's so great about models, alright? There, we made a little forest already, which is great. Yeah, let's not keep all of those. So yeah, we made some models. We can even rename these. You can select multiple. When you hold shift here in the Explorer and click another object, you can select multiple of them. When you hold control, you can select individual ones. So let's call them tree. Now you have trees. Amazing. So that's great. We can quickly make some models and group them so we can change them easily. When we start playing the game, which we can do here in this test section, all right? You have play here, and you have run. So there's a difference between all these three. Playing is for playing with your character in the game. Play here is the same thing as play, but then you're playing where your camera is in editing mode, which I'll show you later. And run is just looking at the game and see, what happens. You don't spawn with your character at all. You just look at the game. Let's play with our character. All right, so we've spawned in on the spawn location, which is the spawn. And you may have noticed where the trees went. We changed the can collide of the base plate to false, remember? Remember when we went here to the base plate and we turned can collide off? Yeah, we want to turn it back on. Because if you turn it off, we fall through it and we just get disintegrated from reality. All right, so let's stop it and change that back real quick. But as you can see, we were actually with our character from Roblox.com, and we were just running around and, as you would on, an actual game on Roblox. But then if we use play here instead, we actually spawn, right there where we had our camera in the editing mode instead of normal playing mode. Also, one thing is the trees have fallen apart. So the reason for that is really simple. Because we didn't anchor them, all right? So let's go back and fix that real quick. So you can select all these parts individually and change them to anchored, but the developers at Roblox made it so you can easily change them all to anchored. So what we can do, we can just select the objects and press anchored. And this will automatically change all the anchored of the parts to true, which is really nice. So we can play again, maybe just run, because that's easier. And then you can see everything is just fine. Nothing's falling apart, just a usual day. So that was making, objects and using tools, testing. And let's see what else we can do. We also have different tabs here, right? You have the testing tab, which is basically just this. You have the model tab. This one is a little more advanced and made for builders, all right? So if you're a builder, you should definitely know about these things. If not, then let's just quickly run through all these things, all right? You've had the select tool, the move tool, scale tool, rotate tool, and transform tool. You have these things. So I highly recommend you to turn these off, and I will tell you why. So when we insert a part, and let's make it like this, we have a little wall, right? Okay, now when we have another part, okay, and let's say you have this set to true. So when we try moving this through the wall, we can't because it's actually blocking. Well, if we actually stretch it far enough, it'll actually go through. But the point is that you cannot actually put it in there, which is really nice sometimes for builders because they can make let me make a quick example. All right, so I made this little example. It's just a kind of a wall with a hole in it. It's made out of 4 parts, as you can see. And what's so nice about it is builders can actually put this here and then scale it so it fits exactly in the hole. Or if you just turn it off, it will go through it and that's a little tedious. Put it to true, it'll stop when it hit the wall, which is really nice. Also a small thing which will help you build. When you hold control while dragging these dots, you will actually rescale it on both sides, which is really good and really nice for precise building. Put it all the way up and we made ourselves a little window like that. That's great, but let's delete that. All right, so collisions, it's great. It's a great tool. sometimes it's useful, but I don't really like to use it often. And next we have join surfaces. All right, so we have had parts that are anchored, and anchored, as you may remember, it means so the part doesn't fall, doesn't move at all. So it's always frozen on this position. So let's turn that to anchored, okay? So this part will not move at all, okay? So let's have another part and enable join surfaces, okay? So let's say you have that enabled. So when we put this, drag it somewhere, you see a little thick white line under it. And when you release that, we actually have an object inside the part, and that is a weld. So a weld, you may know in real life, when you weld two things together, usually metals, they will actually stick to each other and stay like that until, I don't know, when the weld breaks. You may notice this with your bike. Your bike is welded together. It will stick to each other until the weld actually breaks. So same thing on Roblox Studio. So when you put it to something like that, we'll create a weld and it will stick to it forever until this weld is broken. We don't need to actually anchor this thing, the part, because it'll stick to it. So let's test this thing out. Let's see if this part falls, the small one. And as you can see, it doesn't actually fall. When we make this one unanchored and make it fall like this, that's not a great example. Let me try that again. Let me put it in the air, rotate it a little, and let's test that again. So right now the long part is anchored and the small one is not, and it's welded together. So let's actually put this to unanchored, and as you can see, the part still sticks to it. And that's what join surfaces basically does. It makes a part stick to another. You can also manually add these welds. You don't need to have join surfaces enabled. What you can do instead, you can go here. I'll talk about this maybe later on in a different video. You go here, you have the weld option. You click one part, you click the other, boom, you have a weld. And this is a different kind of weld, but don't worry about it. Just know that, it sticks. You can also, make it like this. You click the plus, you look for a weld. You have these two types again. Go here, select part 0 and part 1. Boom. And then for some reason puts it in the middle. Whatever. That's the join surfaces. But I always have this turned off because when you're building, you don't want to make welds for no reason. So I highly recommend it to be turned off. You also have these different modes, which I don't know much about and I will not talk about it. So let's forget that. You have step to grid. This is also really important in building. As you can see, for me, I can make these parts smaller than you can probably. And the reason why is because I'm snapping the size to 0.125 studs. For you, it's most likely set to 1. And with yours, you can only make it like this. And that's not great sometimes, because sometimes you want to make it smaller. And you can turn this off, and then it'll have no limit. You can make it as small as a piece of paper, or really small. But you can also just enable it and change. For example, you want to set it to 5, then it'll snap to 5 studs each time. Alright, but I like to keep to 1, 2, 5. Alright, so same thing with rotation. You have pivots. I'm not going to talk about that. Alignment, you can look into that yourself. It's basically just aligning two parts or multiple parts. You have these once again, which are basically just little shortcuts for your things. Remember when we did Ctrl G to unify two parts? Well, you can also do that here. So you click just group, boom. You can also ungroup them, like so. So, have fun with that. So you also have these gameplay things. So you can click here and you can add effects to it. Like you can add a fire and it'll make a fire. You can also add more spawn locations. And when you have multiple of these, they will actually randomize player spawn location. Alright, great. So you have the testing. You can also make your own little testing server. You can also have one with your friends, but currently I cannot do that because this is a private game. So you can also emulate different devices. So you have here the iPhone X, and this is how it will look like on the iPhone X. You can also simulate, the iPad 2, the Samsung Galaxy S7, an average laptop. You can also put it to fit the window. You have the view tab, and you have all these things. So obviously you have to have these two enabled, and this one is optional, but I like to have it so I can click on it and face a certain direction. And I highly recommend you to enable the output and the command bar. And these ones should be enabled by default. If not, make sure to enable both of them. Because as a scripter, you should always have this enabled. If you don't, then I do not consider you a scripter. So moving on, you have plugins, and I have thousands of these, alright? If you want to get some plugins, I'll show you that later, but I will recommend some plugins in a different video. Alright, so the next and probably final thing will be the Toolbox, alright? So the Toolbox is an amazing world of free things you can get for your game. Alright, so you have the models. So you can get a free model, you can get Talking Ben if you'd like. You can get a 2019 sports car, and there you have it in your game right now. You can use it right now. I'm gonna drive this actually. Alright, moving on. You have more stuff. So you can have even guns in your game. You can click OK. And it can prompt you to ask you to put this in a starter pack. You can say yes, and when you say yes, it'll put it in this thing here, in the starter pack. And all the tools you put in the starter pack will be equipped to the character, right? So when you put this elsewhere, the character will not have it equipped by default, right? So let's move on. You can, apart from models, you can also get images for your game. You can put them on parts. For example, let's get this Squidward thing. You can put it on your parts. And you also have meshes. Meshes are, advanced parts, kind of, you can say. You have, like, for example, potato. And it's actually a really special part because you cannot create this with, these square parts, You can make them in Blender. If you're a modeler or you know how to use Blender, you could make this in Blender and import it into Roblox. Apart from meshes, we also have audio you can use in your game. You have videos, which you cannot upload your own, which is kind of sad, but nonetheless, some of them are pretty useful. For example, I use this one to make a horror game. And finally, we have plugins. And here you have all sorts of plugins. As you can see, I own a lot of them. This one is used by builders to build more advanced and easier. You can load characters with this one. You have Mood Animator, used by animators. 3D text, it's pretty cool. All these things are amazing, and the people who made it definitely deserve more credit for it. Some of them are paid with Robux. So for example, this one, you have to pay to get it. But you also have free ones, and they work just fine. So don't worry if you don't have the Robux. These ones work just fine. Alright, so that's great. We have basically covered about everything. You also have game settings, of course, but you'd have to save it to Roblox. So let's save it to Roblox, and you have some of this, but don't worry about that. You can give your game a name. Let's call it Racing Game, because we have a car, and that's about it. You can give it a description. You can select a creator. If you're in a group, if you own a group, you can select what group you want to put it in. You can also just keep it to your own profile. You have the genre. Let's put it to, what is it? Racing. They don't have racing? Whatever, let's put it to sports. You can select what devices you want to have it play on. You can also enable console, but you gotta make sure you don't have this. in your game. So I agree. You can also enable Team Create. And Team Create is a wonderful feature Roblox added, so you can work with your friends on this game simultaneously without having any hustle. So then you can save it. Then it's uploading it to Roblox, and then it may restart for you the game if you enable Team Create, but that's not a big issue. All right, so we're back into our beloved game, and we can go to game settings here now. We can upload a game icon, thumbnail and videos, genre. So let's say I want to give my greatest friend on Roblox permissions to edit my game. So let's add him. So there, Roblox, and I'll allow him to edit, but I can't because he's obviously not my friend. Let's say I want to have my friend be allowed to edit this game. Go here and make sure it's edit. When you set it to play, they can play test your game, but they cannot edit it, right? So you also have monetization. You can create badges, security. These ones are used by scripters. Places, you can also go back in time and see old versions of your game, which is really cool. Localization, don't worry about that. Avatar, you can also select whether you want to have R6 in your game or R15. If you don't know about that, then just keep it to R15, I guess. And you can change all sorts of stuff. You can change gravity, jump, walk, slope, that kind of stuff. And you can either turn off or turn on collaborative editing, which is used by scripters. So I think Roblox should really make this off by default, and I really hate them for making it true by default, because this is the most tedious thing for scripters in Team Create. So make sure you turn this off when you're starting a project with your friend. And of course, you also have spatial voice, which is voice chat in Roblox. Obviously, it's a great idea if you have a community sort of game, but you know, it's up to you. Let's save it. Now we have our game. So I hope I did a great job at explaining Roblox Studio for you beginners. In the next video, we're actually gonna make our first game that's actually functioning and possibly fun. You get a little more knowledge about how to actually make games on Roblox instead of just importing free models and pray for it to be a good game. So thank you for watching this video. I hope you really enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next video. See ya.